Hello, this is Taha.
This is Anaina.
This is Movie Masala.
And we're here to yap at you about films we watched recently.
And today we're doing
something different. I'm going to give you a rundown of rom-coms throughout the 2000s.
You've never talked to people about 9/11?
No, what's your stance?
What's my stance on 9/11? Oh, anti. It was a tragedy. I mean, we lost 19 of our best guys.
Now, this is not going to be very academic. It's going to be more retrospective, more evolutionary, more biological and scientific, if you will. Except it's really not, because it's just I need to yap about rom-coms. And I have 15.
It's a vibes-based approach.
It's vibes. I have 15. I could have chosen possibly more, and I will probably talk about 18 instead of 15. But that's just because I really want to sell my thoughts and ideas. I'm going to preface this by saying no research has been done. There is no hardcore facts. There is no hardcore evidence to back up these claims I'm making. They are purely based off of my own knowledge of rom-coms, which is extensive.
The source is trust me, bro.
Yes, and I will also preface by saying these are all mostly American because it was really interesting to look at a specific region. And also I think if I'd gone beyond and taken in rom-coms from different countries, I think this episode would have been 2 hours long because you've got to explain so many details. I think it's just really easy to stick to the United States of America for now.
Fair enough.
Not that they're the largest exporter of rom-coms in the movie industry. It's just that they've been some of the biggest ones, and I feel like they need to be discussed. But anyway, we're going to start with 2002. Now, don't ask me why I picked 2002. It's the year after 2001, or rather, when 9/11 happened, which in the United States of America was a turning point for so many, 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 many things, which kind of makes it an interesting starting off point. And we're going to end last year in 2024. And I'm going to go in 3-year slots with 3-year time gaps between them. I'm going to timestamp all of this so nobody has to worry about keeping up with me. But we start in 2002 with My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Now, this film was really interesting to me because one of its major themes was immigration and immigrants and Greek immigration and immigrants. So much of this film, as the title suggests, is about being Greek and, growing up as a first-generation Greek child of immigrants. And the rom-com aspect of this film, the romantic aspect of this film, only kicks off well into it. This film is not very long. It's around 95 minutes long. And I think it's at the 40th or 45th minute mark that the love interest jumps in and is fully solidified as a love interest. So a lot of this film, even though it's called My Big Fat Greek Wedding, is not actually about the wedding or how we got to the point of the wedding or the wedding itself. A lot of this film is about the girl.
Or about the big fat Greekness of it all.
It is about the big fat Greekness of it all and the girl. And I think this is something that really defines the rest of the 2 films I'm going to be talking about this era, which is the girl or the woman or the main protagonist and how they kind of address that through the film. So My Big Fat Greek Wedding is about the main character and her Greekness and how she comes to terms with her Greekness and her Americanness and her love for this non-Greek guy, which is something she's been told she never has to do her whole life. And it's really sweet and it's really cute. And I go, they should make this again. And then I see that they've made 2 more. And they're both not so great. So I'm maybe they should have stuck to that in 2002.
They've only made 1. If you think otherwise, you're wrong.
Exactly. Then we go to 2003 with one of the best rom-coms ever till date, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. It has Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey. And it kind of cements them as one of the best rom-com couples ever. And basically the plot of that is Kate Hudson has to try and seduce and lose Matthew McConaughey within the span of 10 days. But as it will, they fall in love. And what makes this film like so addictive is the fact that they are such funny, idiotic characters, the two of them. And again, it's the characters that hold this film together. Script could have been written by anyone. Characters played by these actors, fantastic. Also, big shout out to Kate Hudson's yellow dress, which did marvels for, women's fashion at the time. And still now, I guess. And then I think what makes this film work, again, like I said, is the fact that these characters are fantastic, but also that they don't feel two-dimensional, like an opposition to like Big Factory Wedding, which seems to be about just two things. These characters feel like they have lives outside of themselves and each other. Each of these characters has friends, has a job which basically they're both doing their job while they're falling in love / not falling in love, which makes it so funny. Also, I think it's one of the like starting points of like, yay, you go girl, both of us have jobs. And which I think is just fun. But what specifically sticks with people about this film is the fact that there is a life to these people. And you don't want to see characters who don't have lives. Which brings me to the next film in 2004, 13 Going on 13. Now, this film has Jennifer Garner and Mark Ruffalo. And I'll admit, a little bit creepy because it's basically Freaky Friday, but for rom-coms, where Jennifer Garner's 13-year-old self gets put into her 30-year-old self.
Yeah, no rom-com who has ever done the body swap has ever managed to actually address the real world implications of what would happen if that were to occur.
Exactly. And this is not about like the relatability or the reality. And this is not even a body swap. It's just a 13-year-old going into 30-year-old. And Mark Ruffalo is kind of like her childhood sweetheart. And she's basically obsessed with him as a kid. But then as an adult, she finds out that he has a life of his own and that she has a life that does not revolve around him. But then somehow they come back to each other and fall in love. Again, it is all about the girl. And while I love my girls, give me more. I know there are people who love 13 Going on 30 a lot, but I think there is something that is just missing from 13 Going on 30, leaving the creepiness of a 30-year-old man falling in love with a 13-year-old woman inside a 30-year-old woman. But again, I've tried to pick like two films that could be better with one film that was fantastic. And I think that if we want to look at these 3 years or the beginning of the 2000s in rom-com terms, I would say How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. That was kind of like a good model.
Okay.
Then we go to 2007. The next three I'm going to do together from 2007, 2008, 2009 because they focus on one specific thing in each film. I'm going to go with No Reservations, which is about cooking. 27 Dresses, which is about dresses. And Confessions of a Shopaholic, which is about shopping. And why I'm clumping these three together is because I love all three of them a lot. They're great films, but they needed to be more. And each of them have characters that are interesting, that are funny, blah, 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 blah. But like I was talking about with My Big Fat Greek Wedding and 13 Going on 30, they needed to have more layers and more depth to them, which, again, I'm not expecting from the average casual rom-com, but I would like to see. That being said, 27 Dresses is one of my favorite rom-coms ever, but that's, again, because the actors, Katherine Heigl and James Marsden, are so, so, so funny. Then we move on to our next era, which is 2012, 2013, and 2014. And we start with what to expect when you're expecting. Now, this is complex, where it has 5 couples. All 5 couples are going through baby making / receiving processes. And each of the couples have such interesting stories and have such unique problems that are not restricted just to the couples, but they have kind of to each individual within that couple as well. They discuss things like adoption. They discuss things like miscarriages, complications with pregnancies, late pregnancies, seemingly perfect normal pregnancies that, can have problems or just go fine, and how that's upsetting for some people as well. And this has less of the typically what you would call the romantic aspect of it, but I think that it embodies like the maturing of a romance so well, because it talks about the stage where people automatically assume you're after. The next is What If, which has Daniel Radcliffe and Zoe Kazan. And
Okay.
would not expect Daniel Radcliffe in a rom-com, but he's really, really funny. And it's kind of entering into that moody mid-2000s kind of vibe where there's unsurety in where things will happen. There's unsurety in characters and people and personalities. And it just kind of makes for a really well thought out script. And we see a progression of a rom-com. And then we get to Love, Rosie, which is based on a book. And it stars Lily Collins and Sam Claflin. And it's basically, the book is based off of letters and emails that the two characters write to each other. And the movie does a shit job at it. And you've lost me again. This is the only movie on here that based off of a book, as far as I know, and a book I have read as well. And I just wish it was a better adaptation, because the book has so much nuance to it. It is written so well and so beautifully. And it was kind of disappointing to see it translated into a mediocre rom-com at best.
Okay. So I feel going throughout these ages, one thing you see is how it starts from the girl becoming much more of her own character and like leading the plot. And it matures into like more complex themes and like talking about the more complex and mature ways of talking about love. And you see rom-coms evolve into that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you're so right. And then we go into like the 3 years just before COVID, which is 2017, 2018, 2019. For 2017, I picked The Big Sick, which is based off of Kumail Nanjiani's real story. It's a kind of autobiographical, semi-biographical story.
I have watched that one.
Amazing. And I don't know how you feel about it, but I thought it was great. It was heart-wrenching. It was gut-wrenching. Because basically it talks about the clash of cultures between Kumail Nanjiani and his white partner, Emily Gardner. And then she falls sick. But this film remains so funny constantly throughout it, throughout the drama, throughout the sadness, throughout the grief, throughout the clash of cultures. And I think that's up to Kumail Nanjiani, who does a fantastic job of keeping the comedy part of a rom-com alive. And then just his love for his partner is just fills up the rom-com side. And I'm happy.
Yeah.
So I really, really love this film. And I think this 2017, 18, and 19 has to be my best eras for rom-coms, because we're going to 2018 with Set It Up, which I think is my favorite rom-com ever. It has Zoe Deutsch and Glenn Powell, our first appearance from Glenn Powell. I knew before everyone else that Glenn Powell was a rom-com man before he did all his action stints, because he is so funny and so cute and so adorable in this film.
He is one of those charming characters I've seen on screen. I cannot lie.
Exactly. And he plays an adorable dork in this one. He is not charming. He is disgusting. He is gross. You do not want to like him, but you like him because...
Yeah, because he's Glenn Powell.
Exactly. So basically, Zoe Deutsch and Glenn Powell both play like assistants to these high-profile like CEOs or whatever. And they try to set them up through a Cyrano and end up falling in love with each other. And again, like the same with How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. They're both trying to do their jobs. When they meet and fall in love, their end goal ends up failing. And yet we are rooting for them throughout. We want them to fail so badly at their jobs because we want them to fall in love. And yeah, I think the comedic aspect of it, fully pulled off by Glenn Powell. The cuteness part of it, the like romantic part of it, Zoe Deutsch just makes Glenn Powell seem lovable. And I think, big up her. And then we go to one of our only kind of non-white rom-coms, Always Be My Maybe, which has Ali Wong and Randall Park. And I don't know if you've seen anything by Ali Wong. She is hilarious. She is.
I love her special baby cobra. It is so
Exactly.
funny.
She's so funny in this one, but she's also has so much depth to her character. Basically, there are two Korean Americans in San Francisco, childhood friends, childhood sweethearts, slept one time, stopped being friends. She becomes a high-profile chef. He's just a singer, still a singer, and they reconnect and they fall in love and they cannot leave
He's
each
just
other.
a guy.
Exactly. He's just a guy. Keanu Reeves is involved at some point. There's a lot of jealousy with Keanu
I know
Reeves.
Keanu Reeves is involved in this.
Again, this has to be one of my favorite rom-coms as well because of how well Ali Wong has written her own character and Randall Park's character. And I just think Randall Park is a fabulous actor because he can simultaneously be just a guy who's lame and super uncool, but also so sensitive and so smart, which is great.
Mhm.
And then this is just before COVID. And then
Yes.
we go into 2021, right after COVID, or just as we're coming out of COVID. And we enter the Wattpad era of rom-coms.
Okay.
And I've chosen Love and Gelato for 2022, Anyone But You for 2023, and The Idea of You for 2024. All three I'm going to lump together again.
Mhm.
Not bad. I just don't see it. I think most of them were Wattpad books or somehow loosely based off of different books, kind of smushed together. And I'm not saying they shouldn't have been turned into films, otherwise I wouldn't have gotten to just switch off my brain and watch them. But we'd reached such a good point where rom-coms evolved, characters evolved, more serious themes were addressed and developed and talked about alongside the romantic and comedic parts, which just got lost on me. I'm not saying the actors didn't do a good job. They did a great job with whatever material they were provided with. But I would like to see more, which brings me to 2025 and a film we've discussed, The Materialists. I'm not going to talk about The Materialists because we all know.
I knew you were going to talk
Because
about
we
it.
all know my thoughts on it. And that gives me hope. I said this on the Materialist episode as well. Now I would like to specify why it gives me hope. Because this is what we saw after COVID. These aren't the only 3 rom-coms that released, by the way, just after COVID. There have been tons and tons and tons. And I have watched so many of the American rom-coms. And they all sound and feel the same. And The Materialist was a breath of fresh air, which is what I want to see now. And that is the kind of evolution of rom-coms and devolution, I guess, as I see it.
I think this growing cycle in some ways, right, of how it worked itself. It stumbled along the way multiple times and it's becoming into this also more diverse and looking into love in such a multi-pronged approach. And then how post-COVID, it just feels like it then retreated to the safe area back into, like, as you mentioned.
Exactly. And it's kind of like a sign of the timesy kind of thing where we're seeing it be so difficult to tell nuanced stories or to tell stories that go just beyond the surface. And I think rom-coms are the first markers of that because they kind of got abandoned with the whole action genre, which I was very disappointed by. But then when we did see them being revived, they were being, like you said, cyclically revived in the original sense. And that's not to say that rom-coms before the 2000s weren't great. We've had some of the best rom-coms from the 90s, which I've chosen to kind of not talk about because that would be so long, as I said before. But I think what we need to see is with a revival of the rom-com, we need to keep the essence of what we developed to, the nuance of love, the nuance of storytelling alive as well. And that was my retrospective on rom-coms. Very niche and maybe hot takes for some people, but I do think that with like any genre that we discuss, the romantic comedy genre has to be looked at. Because again, it cannot help but, any film we make now cannot help but reflect a sign of the times.
Yeah, 100%.
So let's not ignore rom-coms and keep maybe switching off our brains to watch them, but hopefully turning them back on.
And here's hoping they make more good ones specifically for you. You know, they have a little banner for Anaina.
If there is one supporter of a rom-com left, it's me. If there's none, I'm dead.
So with that, those were our thoughts. Thank you for tuning in. This podcast is produced solely by us with musical assets from Pixabay. If you enjoyed this, please do share it. See you again next time.
Bye-bye.